Today's podcast, I am joined by Alice Rivers-Cripps. Slightly, I just checked, just read down because obviously your name is slightly different on the Zoom screen as we've
Yes,
discussed.
apologies.
Who is the founder and creative brilliance behind Posh Totty Designs? Which, I mean, if you're anything like me, you've been a fan. I mean, I've been a fan for years, and I love the personalization. They're so pretty. I just love what you do, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about how Posh Totty came to be.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot to me, actually. It's really special when I hear that from customers. So thank you.
I think as well, if you're kind of a lurker, like I know I feel like a lurker. You sort of looking at, oh, that's pretty. Or you go and look at the website, or one of the things I'm going to talk about later is your recent collaboration. But I don't know if I've sort of actively said how much I like what you're doing. So I think it's always good if you see something in someone you like, you have to tell them, whether that's on social media or in real life too.
I totally agree. Just even in the street, if you see someone and you like what they're wearing, just tell them. No one's ever going to be offended by that, are they?
No, absolutely. And it's good to share a bit of joy and happiness, I think. The world's a hard enough place for everybody.
Exactly. I totally agree with you 100%, which is kind of what we do. I mean, that's the one thing about the jewelry is that it's much more about the stories behind the jewelry than it is about us. We are creating simple jewelry that people can then put their stories onto and can put their messages onto, hopefully creating those heirloom pieces that they'll pass on to the next generation, and they'll hear the story of how those people met, or the birth of that child, the birth of their grandfather, kind of thing. It's just like that's what I always wanted to kind of build from the very beginning, was jewelry with stories and keepsakes.
Yeah, I think you can buy, yeah, there's loads of places you can buy jewelry from, and there's lots of very cheap jewelry, there's lots of very expensive jewelry, but actually that jewelry with the story behind and the meaning behind, and the fact you can personalize everything, whether it's with beautiful little stones, gemstones, or with words or initials, it makes it just incredibly special, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely because when I work in the stores, I'm always amazed when the customers come in, they want to tell me all about it. And their stories, sometimes you're standing there and you're like, oh my God, I'm about to burst into tears. It's just like the meaning behind their story and their piece is so phenomenal, and you really feel it for them and you feel it with them, and you can kind of just, I mean, it's just, you just feel a real honor to be allowed to kind of create that special piece that's going to make that difference to them. So it is, I mean, it's a huge honor, and we're like in our 21st year now. And I started doing it at my kitchen table, and then I under the stairs in a little workshop that I made, many different kind of guises. But it was always kind of wanting to make jewelry with heart, rather than throwaway fashion pieces that we were going to put on the scrap heap. I am famed for that. I was always buying from vintage stores, or kind of going to, I had a mix of everything from Primark through to old vintage pieces. So it's not like I'm not, I'm against all of it, but I always wanted to kind of create something that really meant something, and really stood for something. And I'm also kind of a word lover. I'm like a real wordsmith. So the idea of being able to kind of stamp people's words onto jewelry meant so much to me. So I wasn't sure it was going to work. And when I started, the silversmiths in my workshop were like, what are you doing? And they were like, I can't believe that you're using steel stamps to work precious metal. And they were very against the idea, but actually the customers kind of soon realized how special it was, and loved that concept. So it kind of took off from there, really. So
And it's worked out all right.
it has.
21
And we're still doing it exactly the same way as when we started, but we've got a much bigger team now, but obviously, but they're still doing the same process, and it's a process that's been going for hundreds of years. We've still, all of our jewelers have leather under their benches, and they've got mallets, and they've got all the same kind of tools that they would have used hundreds of years ago. So when people come into the workshop, it always feels really, really magical and kind of really inspiring to see everyone at work. And we're really proud to have an all-female team in there as well, so who are incredible. And it's amazing because I make the initial samples, and then I show it to them, and then they go off and create magic. So it always comes back a little bit better, a little bit shinier. So,
I love that. So take us back to where it started, because after university you went off to Mexico, didn't you? And that's when the kind of seeds were planted. So can you talk to us about how it came to you having a cupboard under the stairs like Harry Potter? How did you get to that point?
So it was an incredible story. Like I came out of university, having studied media and performance. Um, and that was more of a decision based on I failed my A levels. I didn't know what to do. I got in through clearing. It was a panic. But I loved every second of university, had a fantastic time. You know, it was definitely a life skill. And but came out and was realized that actually the last thing I wanted to do was be an actress, you know, or work in TV. I didn't have thick enough skin to kind of be able to deal with all those auditions and all of that kind of negativity that goes along with it. So I was running for the hills, and I went off to travel. And the one place that I'd always wanted to go to, I'd spent a lot of time in North America, but I'd never been to Mexico, and it'd always been a dream to kind of cross over to there. So I decided to go traveling through Mexico on my own, in a bit of a panic, and I bought a ticket, and I only had $60 in my pocket, and I arrived in Mexico, and I didn't know anyone, and I didn't have anywhere to stay, and I mean, that's a much longer story, but I slept on the beach, and I had to kind of, yeah, which isn't the safest place. And I had to really kind of build friendships. I bought a bicycle, I cycled off around the island, and I ended up with 22 jobs on my first day, which was amazing to choose from. And I picked the one with a bed, obviously, because I needed somewhere to sleep. And the kind of, and that was actually working in a hotel. They quickly realized that I had dreadful Spanish, and I couldn't really work on a reception with my lack of Spanish. So they looked after me for a bit, but they kept passing me on to different people. So I was kind of passed around the local community, and ended up working with some Mayan jewelers who were absolutely amazing. And although there was a language barrier, I was able to kind of see how, I think what I hadn't realized was how beautiful it is, the process, how traditional and old fashioned it is, and how simple it is. Like it was much simpler than when I looked at a ring or I looked at a piece of jewelry. I hadn't quite realized that actually I could do it, and I could be free with it and create whatever I wanted. So it was just this moment of like, this is what I want to do. So I came back to the UK and decided that I would try and find my signature style. It took many years, and I have many boxes in the attic full of dreadful pieces of jewelry that I tried out. It was also about affordability. I couldn't really afford to work with silver, so I was working with, tin cans. I was working with Fimo. I was working with glass beads. It was like lots of different bits of electrical wire. I tried all sorts of different things. And then basically realized that actually I wanted to kind of create, precious metal keepsakes, something that people would keep and love and cherish. So that's when I decided to kind of launch as a brand and set up a shop. My absolute dream was to be a shopkeeper in Brighton. And it kind of came to me the moment I arrived in Brighton. I don't know if you've been to Brighton, but it's so full of creativity. And you arrive in the North Lane and you suddenly see all the colours of the rainbow, and you see all the independent stores. And it's just, I've never seen anything like it. And it reminded me a bit of San Francisco, but on a smaller, brighter scale. So I fell in love with it the moment I came to visit. And I was like, this is where I want to be. I want to live in Brighton. I want to have a shop, and I don't really care where it goes from there. As long as I can make jewelry in a little shop, I'll be the happiest person on the planet. And so that's where it started. And then Holly Tucker from Not on the High Street came and found me in this tiny little shop that I had opened up an alley. I always believed in having the worst shop on the best street. So we decided to kind of try desperately to get as close to the best street as possible. And I ended up this little tiny alley on Bond Street. And my rent was £2,000 a year. So, but
Right.
it's amazing, but it had no shop front. So I was literally, it was very, very hard. And without the aid of the internet, I don't think it would have worked. But it was a tiny little place where I could make my jewelry. I could set it up like a shop. People would come in, you know, the bell would ring, people would wander in, and they would kind of talk to me, and I might sell 5 pieces a week, which probably was never gonna, you know, I probably couldn't have survived for long. But Holly Tucker came and found me in that shop, and immediately said, "We need you on Not on the High Street." At that point, I didn't even know what Not on the High Street was. She hadn't even launched it. So then
Oh, wow.
so then we were able to have conversations. And from there, it was very much a case of, you must come on. And I was like, well, I don't have the funds to be able to pay to go on this site. I've got no idea what it is. And I don't have any money. So she basically was like, okay, I'll take a punt, you know, we'll get you on the site. And we became the top seller on that site for many, 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 many years. It was incredible. I went from those 5 orders to, I think within the first month of being on there, I was getting like 30 orders a day. And then I was like, okay, I need help. And then it got to the point where we were getting 1,000 orders a day at Christmas. So it was.
That's a lot from 5 a week. I mean, that is quite a climb.
Yes, it was mental, and incredibly tough at that time. I mean, amazing and very exciting. And, you know, I had the energy to be able to cope with that. But it was also like I was pulling in friends, family, the local dog. I mean, anyone I could find to help me produce it. You know, it was kind of, I mean, it was mental. And we were all in this tiny space, and we all kind of felt like we were little elves kind of working away. But obviously from there I expanded, I took on a team, and I kind of grew and developed there, to what we are today. So I always believe that without Holly Tucker coming and finding me, I don't know that I would have, you know, whether we would have be where we are today, or whether I'd even still be making jewelry. You know, so she was quite a catalyst.
Big fans of Holly. I mean, she does so much for the small business community, even now that she's, you know, not on the high street, she does something different. She does a lot, doesn't she? She really flag waves for the small businesses, the independents, which is so good. So obviously you're really well known for the personalized aspect, for having, you know, if anyone's listening that hasn't gone to the website, go to the website now. It's beautiful. You can have names, you can have, say, gemstones in lots of different designs on lots of different pieces. But did you start with the personalized side of it, or did that evolve?
I started with the person. I mean, obviously when I say I started, that was my signature style. So once I'd established that I wasn't going to be working with bits of electrical wire and stuff, and, you know, and
Always good.
as soon as I moved on to working in silver, I wanted to put words on it. I wanted to put my name on it. You know, and then I think the moment I had my own children was also a moment where I was like, this is going to work. Like, I really, really want to wear my children's names on a piece of jewelry around my neck. I want to have them everywhere. I want them on a ring. I want them on a bracelet, you know, the whole works. So I think that definitely inspired me. But I was already doing like the odd name. But to be honest, I was doing lots of quotes, you know, like funny quotes that I had. I was always stamping that on things, and for friends and family, you know, so it was always there. But I didn't really have the funds. So I was always testing out my stamping on tin cans. So many, you know, you can't do that now because it bounces when you try stamping on a tin can. But back then it used to be perfect. It was like lovely. So I'd cut tin cans open and then flatten them with a hammer and then use them to kind of practice. So yeah, it's always been a thing. The personalization's always been a thing. And I think that's what makes it unique. I think there's so much jewelry out there. And there's incredible jewelry out there. Like, you know, there is, I could name, you know, 20 amazing designers. But one thing that I always felt was quite special was just that element of making it yours, making it unique and personal to you. So
Yeah, I think there's not many brands, please correct me if I'm wrong, that have kind of got the personalization built into the level that you have. You can sometimes get an initial put on the back of something or the back of something engraved, but the personalization is an essential part of Posh Totty products, isn't it?
yes, I mean, it's definitely our core business. It's definitely what makes us get up in the morning and makes us passionate. And I'm almost, I would say that I try and make sure that 80% of our jewelry is personalized. I think I'm always trying to work out new ways. It's kind of Roman numerals. It's, we do birth flowers, we do birth birds, we do star signs, we do, nautical flags. We've kind of, we've crossed everything off in terms of personalization. And the most important ones being the birthstones, I would say, is like, I think, obviously the hand stamping of letters is so different to an engraving machine. We are hand stamping each letter on there. So every jeweler, who they've all got their own style, their own signature style, but they still end up making it look absolutely beautiful. But it's still done by a human, so it makes it even more special. But the stones, that's just something that's so incredible, just to be able to get your whole family on a bangle or on a ring, and know that every single one of those stones represents someone in your life is something that's really, really special. And you can also have words with it, so we've got all of that. But I would say also that we do some really, really strong collections that are non-personalized as well. So we've just started selling in Heathrow Airport and Gatwick, soon to be Gatwick, but we're in Heathrow, Qatar Airport, and we also sell in different department stores and concessions around the world. Now, all of those aren't personalized, but they're still really, really strong in their design. So I get a real kick out of creating a full collection that looks beautiful. And then sometimes I'll go back to it afterwards and be like, now, how can we personalize that? So, sometimes, like, for example, the Wild collection, which we recently launched.
So cool.
Yeah,
such a lovely collection.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And we just did that recently with Hannah Cooper Domit. And all of those pieces are absolutely beautiful in their own right. But then they also have that element of, you can change that stone from being a diamond to being your birthstone, or you can have some, a message on the back that is engraved on the back or hand stamped on the back. So, we're giving people that opportunity to kind of personalize it still.
Does the personalization aspects, obviously that's very time consuming, because I know you make, you make them, you have them stamped. Does that made it difficult to scale at all? Or does the integration of the ranges that people can buy without personalization, or is it just so fundamental to your core that actually it's just how it is?
It's a good question. I mean, it is, I guess the whole point with the collections that we've just done for Heathrow and stuff is much more about that kind of ability to scale. So we are trying to prove that we can do that. But I would still say that at the very core and the very heart of what we do, it is personalized. And that does come with its challenges. So at Christmas, when the orders suddenly double, we have to bring in a whole massive team of people that we have like an academy from about September onwards, where we train people in how to hand stamp, and then we kind of work with them through Christmas to kind of get those orders out, because and actually everybody in the team is there trying to do what they can. But we've kind of, over the years, I mean, when we first started, it was so dramatic in that respect. But now over the years, we've managed to iron it out so that we're busy all year round. We can keep a team all year round. We have an incredible team. But yeah, I think we've mastered the efficiencies as much as possible, but we don't want to. I think if we stop doing personalized, that would be that's our identity. So I feel like we always want to continue with personalized. It's about how we do it better and how we can scale it. So I mean, we have done personalization stations before, which were great. We did those in lots of different pop-ups across all the different department stores, and that was always really fun to do. But that also is quite costly, whereas we've got this amazing workshop where we've got all the tools, everything ready to go. And ultimately, we're really, really fortunate that 90% of our sales are done online. So we can send worldwide. And that's what really helps us. So I think, I think we're also quite lucky, because sadly, the high street is in decline, and the internet is where people are going. So, it's come at the right time. And I think, although I'm a shopkeeper at heart and I will always continue to have shops, and I love them very much, we definitely wouldn't survive if we just had the stores. We definitely need to have that online presence.
No, I think they're all really good points. And I guess the beauty of then having that online presence is you can have that well tooled up workshop with your incredible staff. They don't have to be all across the country because you can ship from anywhere from that one point.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned that you've got a workforce of around 50 now,
Yes.
and they're predominantly women, which is awesome. I mean, it's great. But has that been quite a conscious step, or has that just been how it's evolved, or how is that?
I always feel incredibly guilty about this because I think, oh my God, it sounds terrible. But no, I mean, I absolutely, it's not been a conscious thing. I think, if I'm honest, a brand name like Posh Totty Designs, you're only going to get more women. It doesn't necessarily appeal to many men. We've got some fabulous men working for us, but we do only have five. So,
Fair enough.
yeah, and my husband being one of them. So yeah, so it's not, we would never ever not want to have men in the business. But I would say, and it's quite an interesting one because when I first started, it was mostly men that were jewelers.
Mm.
So in my workshop, I was one of, I think there was like two females and the rest were men. Whereas now it's like so many females are jewelers. So I'm not sure how that's worked, and whether that's the same in all businesses of our kind, but like it's definitely just been women coming through the door.
No, that's fair enough. No, I just think it's really cool because I know you're hugely pro women in business. You're part of By Women Built, aren't you?
Oh
You're
yeah,
such a cool organization, and
amazing.
you're obviously an amazing female founder. And I just thought, I wonder if it's. But then, do you sometimes think it's actually sort of because you're so passionate about those things, you attract people who share those passions, and that could just be more women than men because it's who you are.
Absolutely. I mean, we do, we work with Women for Women International, we work with Brighton Women's Centre, like there's an awful lot of charities that we work with which are female, they're definitely suited to women more than men. And also, I guess, it's jewellery, it's female. I really, really care about everything. I care about the sustainability. I care about creating these magical, meaningful pieces. My team are very passionate about what they do. So, yeah, I mean, that would make sense. But I've also got two sons. So although I'm forever shouting female founded and, female team, I'm also really aware that they're, male. They can't help it.
No, but don't you think I've got two sons, and they'll sometimes say things. There was somebody, I can't remember who it was. It might have even been Holly Tucker, who said something like her son asked if men could be. I feel bad if I'm misquoting Holly, but feel like her son asked, or someone of that kind of level of prominence, if men could be entrepreneurs too, if men could be leaders in business. And I just thought, I don't want my sons to necessarily say that, but I want them to see
Yeah.
that we're all equal. We can all do amazing things. It's not, oh, the men are the CEOs
No,
and the
exactly.
women are the admin assistants. I mean, if they want to be, absolutely, but it doesn't matter. And
No.
everyone should be respected for who they are. And they'll sometimes say things, and I kind of think, I think they're getting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, my sons have both been in the business from day one. And they are, they're just as passionate as I am. But interestingly, like my eldest son, who's 17, we went last week to go and visit a university because he wants to study business and economics. And I'm so excited about the idea of him being in the business because he really gets it and he really understands why I'm doing it and the purpose behind it. And I think that's so important. I think we've just got to keep educating them. And to be honest, yeah, we are very few, unfortunately. When you actually look at the statistics, there aren't enough of us. So, and I think By Women Built, I think Sahar is bringing that to the forefront all the time, and Holly, that we need to do far more. Like, I get really excited because it's all I've ever known. So I kind of, when people say, oh, how is it difficult being a woman in business? I'm like, oh, I don't know, because it's all I've known.
Just is, just am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of just do it. Like, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, but I just do it. And I guess that's kind of what I've always done. And yet there, and yet there are big challenges that women are facing all the time. So it needs to be recognised. And maybe I've been lucky so far.
I mean, I think a lot of hard work. I mean, let's be honest. I've got this thing about luck, and I know we all get the odd like lucky break, but I think when you sort of unpick luck, there's a
Yeah,
lot of the stuff at the back end that makes it so when that thing happens, you're in the position to do it.
100%. I would say luck has definitely factored in there, but I would say that it's been about taking those opportunities, running with them, saying yes to as many things as possible. I mean, I possibly used to say yes to too many things, and I'm probably learning a little bit more about saying yes, and just being positive, just like always being positive. And realizing that the only cheerleader, your number one cheerleader's got to be you. So from the very beginning, when people were going, oh, I'm not sure about this, I was like, yes, it's amazing. And you kind of had to, and I felt stupid doing it. And I didn't always feel like this was where I wanted to be saying that. But I was like, no one else is going to say it. I've got to say it. I've got to believe. And if I believe, then hopefully everyone else will start to believe as well. So yeah, I believe and that's more than luck.
Oh, absolutely. And thinking about your whole kind of business journey so far, all business journeys have highs and lows. Those sort of highs when you think of winning at life, and those lows when you just think, why am I bothering? Can you share a high and a low or anything that stands out from your journey so far?
So my high, I guess I've got two highs. One was going with Women for Women International to Kosovo a few years ago, and I went out there and met women that had been affected by war. And they were just the most incredible women I've ever met, and they kind of embraced me. And we created a collection together called the Share a Hug collection, which was actually just before COVID. And then obviously with COVID, that collection flew out the door. Everybody
That's an
wanted.
unlucky name based on the timing, but I
Yes,
love the
exactly.
idea.
Oh, it was amazing. But also it was just like I had these stories that these women were telling me were just so unbelievable, and some of them just so tragic, and and just they were so resilient and so strong. Like this woman gave birth on the side of the road, and the soldiers wouldn't let her have any treatment or anything, and she managed to do that. Another woman had to hand her baby over to a guy on the bus and watch them drive off with her baby because she wanted her baby to be safe. And I was hearing firsthand these stories and these people telling me, and I just felt so incredibly honored that they wanted to tell me, but also that we were able to then create this collection that meant so much, and that we were able to then raise funds for such an incredible charity. So yeah, and we still work closely with them today, and they are amazing. So that was like one high. And then on a more kind of personal, slightly celebrity based thing, we had a launch party a couple of weeks ago, and we had Davina McCall there.
I
um
saw this. I
yeah.
saw this on your Instagram and I thought, I mean, I love Davina. I think Davina's incredible, but Hannah, who I know you've created a collection with, is also amazing. And Joel came as well, didn't he?
Yes, yeah, and yeah, there was quite a few. There was like the Saturdays, like it was like Rachel Stevens. I mean, it was Jodie Kidd. It was fantastic. They were just such a warm bunch of people. I was obviously terrified and very, very nervous about having to go and launch this collection with them. But Hannah held my hand the whole time. Was the warmest. We've been working together for about a year now. I met her at a party, and we've been working for about a year now on creating this collection. And what was lovely was that she was so involved the whole way through it. So she was really into the creative process, and actually so creative and so talented. And so we kind of created this collection together, and she would kind of tweak it the whole time and be like, sure, can we work on that? And it was just so nice and refreshing to work with somebody, because at the moment, I'm still the creative director. I generally do all the designs myself. So to have this kind of back and forth with her was wonderful. So we were going up to London and hanging out, and she came down here, and we did a ring making class together and all sorts of different things. So it was just, we've become friends, and it was like so lovely. So to just have this big blowout at the end, and to have all these fabulous people in the room, I had to stand up and talk to them all, and then we might have overdone it with the margaritas and the rosé,
I
but
think
it
you would
was
have to. It would be wrong not to at that point, I
exactly.
think.
But no, it was fabulous. So those are two highs. But and obviously just I'm very lucky to do what I do and have a creative team around me that are amazing. That goes without saying. But yeah, and then in terms of negatives, like the difficult time. Last year we had a really tough time. We had the council decided to close our building that we'd been in for 15 years.
I mean, that definitely feels like a tough situation. Is this where your workshop was and everything?
Yeah, the workshop, the whole thing was there. And they came in and on a Friday at 9 o'clock at night closed the building without any notice period at all. And it was pretty shocking, and we had to go to the press. I was on the front page of the local newspaper, I was on the radio, I was on the TV, and it was just absolutely shocking. And so that was something that I would never have expected. And you kind of have all these ideas of like what could possibly go wrong in your business, and contingency plans and stuff. And the one thing that you never think is that the council building is going to get suddenly taken away from you. So that was pretty shocking. And actually doing that on my own, because I own the business and it's all on me. It was so hard to navigate, to be, I had this whole team of people that I was like, well, I've got to keep paying them because they've got to keep paying their rent, and they've got to keep paying their mortgages, and they've got to pay for their kids to go to school. I can't just stop paying them, but what am I supposed to do? And then it was like, hang on, I've got a backup of 2,000 orders that need to get out the door.
Oh my gosh, it's the responsibility of all those moving parts.
Exactly. And it was like, how do I let the customers down? Well, I can't let the customers down because that would be so damaging for our reputation. My team were incredible. We started to work wherever we could. People were working from home, but we didn't have the tools, we didn't have everything, we couldn't get in the building, so it was all pretty dramatic at the time. But from there we actually moved out, and we're now in an amazing new workshop that I probably would never have moved to had it not been for this. So now I feel so kind of free, and it's beautiful where we are. We're right in the centre of Brighton, very close to the seafront. It's a big Regency building. We've got the whole place. We've got a big workshop. My team are the happiest they've ever been. Oh, so actually, it's all it wouldn't have happened, and now it has. So it's kind of like, let's move on. And I think that's the point with being a business owner, is that you have to forget and move on. If you keep holding on to little things, it will just destroy you. So I feel like, and also I think I'm a bit like, I've always said I'm a bit like a goldfish. I go once around the bowl and then I forget. And it's brilliant because it keeps everything. I'm like, yep, okay, so let's try it again. Let's wake up today and try it again.
Don't you think that's why people have more than one child as well? I feel like I've taken a turn. I had twins, so in my defense, I didn't have a lot of say in that. But I know when I had the boys, the whole thing was quite traumatic because, it's, even if it goes well, it's, it's smart.
Horrendously traumatic, yeah.
Straight back in there. And I love that about people, because otherwise the human race wouldn't survive. But I wonder if we have this inbuilt thing going, that was awful. We should do it again.
Yeah. Do you know what though? I think you're totally right. I think there is almost like, if it's that bad, you block it out, and then
yes.
Okay, back to it. Let's try it again. So yeah, I think I definitely agree. Yeah, the first birth was, if you want to go down that route, nightmare. So yes.
See, and you went a second time.
Yes.
I just like to feel I was well, efficient. Not deliberately efficient, but
I think that's amazing.
I didn't think that at the time.
To have two, to suddenly have to like manage two kids. It was hard enough with one.
Although, touch wood, they were really, like, I know you can't have good babies and bad babies because babies are just babies, but they were quite chilled. I had friends who had one child who was a lot harder work than the two. They
kept themselves occupied.
Yeah. And they coordinated their sleeping. So
I think it's definitely down to the sleeping. And that was one thing I would say, is that my husband had a restaurant when I first had my child. And there was no question of anyone, of me staying up all night, because I had orders to get out. I was like, I just opened my first shop when I ended up pregnant.
Oh gosh.
3 months. So that shop that was up the alley that I was talking about, I ended up heavily pregnant in this very narrow alley. And I ended up having my son under the counter most days, and I'd be rocking him in a car seat under the
I
workbench.
love that though.
He didn't know, he was fine. You know, and then at night time, I was like, I've got to get those orders out. So I was like, you've just got to go to sleep. There's no choice in the matter. And I do think there's something about that. If you want to stay up and hang out, then fine. But if you actually set a full routine, you know, I know that it's not like that for everybody, but there is an element of routine, and then things do get easier. So
The juggle though, I mean, I know you said your eldest is 17 now.
yes,
The juggle though, it's a lot, isn't it?
yes.
Juggling all the bits and trying not to drop too many balls all the time.
Yes, and do you know what I find very interesting is how I get so excited and love every day, and I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. I love what I do, you know, and I get really excited by every new design still. And I'm kind of like when we kind of create a collection, it's so exciting. And then there are days where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, you know, I'm exhausted and I'm not doing it right. And, you know, we all, you know, especially at the moment, I've got both boys going through GCSEs and A levels.
Oh, that's, I
Yeah.
mean, it's horrible one, isn't it? Let alone the two.
And so I feel like I'm never performing enough. I feel like I'm never there enough. I feel like I'm over there doing something else. They come in and they're like, oh, Mom, you're on your phone again. And I'm like, no, but it's really important, I promise. You know, and it's kind of like you never feel like you're quite doing it right. So, yeah, even when you know, who knows?
Juggle is a laugh. I
Yeah.
don't think anyone feels they're doing it right. From people I've spoken to, no one feels they've got it sorted. But I think that's just life. You get one thing sorted and then something else crazy happens.
Yes, exactly.
Run
Yeah,
off
we
with
call
that.
it whack-a-mole in our place. It's like there's always a whack-a-mole. We're always whacking something. It's like
100%. Before I ask you all the places, is there any sort of if you're thinking of people who are starting on a business journey and maybe thinking of perhaps starting a side hustle or wanting to grow their business, what are there any sort of nuggets of advice that you could share that you've picked up from your years?
I would say definitely do it, but don't wait for the financial investment. Don't wait for, you know, I feel like a lot of the time people sit and they wait and they're like, oh, I've got this plan, and then I've written this whole business plan, and I've got all these ideas, and I'm going to, when I'm ready, I'm going to show it to this person or whatever. It's like, just get on and do it. You know, like I'm a real person for just get on and do it, though. That's probably my mantra. And so therefore it's like, with what I did, I was working full time in the day, and then in the evenings I was making, and I was giving to friends and family, and then I was kind of going out there going, come on, take it, someone take it, you know. And then I was doing like a little trade show, or I was going around to shops going, please, will you have my stuff in your shop? You know, it was like I was never stopping. I was forever thinking. It took up so much of my time and my energy because I was so passionate about it. And I do believe that if you're doing it just for money, it won't work. If you're doing it because you think you've got this amazing idea that the world needs to see and needs to be part of and needs to have, then go for it, because I feel like you can't go wrong. If you really, really believe in it, you can't go wrong. I've got the seagulls making a racket here, sorry. Whereas I think just do it for the right reasons, and then just work your ass off. I think literally graft is where it comes from. And if you love it and you're passionate about it, you'll do it till midnight every night. You know, it's like, it's about putting the time in and the effort and the energy.
Yeah, I love that as well, because another thing I've got from our conversation, and when I was doing the book, I spoke to Emma Bridgewater, who, you know, just
Who's a
incredible.
legend? Yeah.
Oh gosh, she was amazing. But I'm very kind of pro people starting small. Obviously, some businesses you need a big chunk of cash to get going. But I think what you said there, some people think, well, I'll do it when I get 100 grand, 200 grand. Most people can start a business to start trying, testing, and iterating with very, very little investment.
Yeah.
But
I started on the back of a tin can. I mean, you know,
there you go. Can't
it's
get much less than that, really, can you?
but it is. I totally agree. I never ever got any financial support when I started. It was very much just kind of navigating and going for every opportunity. You know, like a craft fair is simple. You can go and do one of those. You know, it was like, rather than buying clothes on the weekend, I was spending it on buying silver. It was like I really wanted to do that more than I cared about anything else. So, I wasn't going to the restaurants, I wasn't eating out, I was making sure that I was spending it on my business. And I think that's, I built my first website on my own downstairs in the basement. It was like I was kind of like, I will create this. So that's, and also having the support from my husband, who was like, don't worry, you can stay down in the basement for a bit of time making a website. It's like, I'll cook dinner.
So take it out of context, so you can stay in the basement for a bit isn't ideal, is it? But in this way, I know it's very, very positive.
That sounded very wrong. You might need to cut that one.
No, I love it. I love it. Actually, one last question. Why is your business called Posh Totty?
Okay, that's a good question, because I don't really tell people enough. So actually, when I grew up, my mum was a single parent mum, absolutely fantastic mum, and she sent me. I got an art scholarship, and I was growing up in Nottingham, and then she got this incredible art scholarship to a school down in the New Forest.
Oh wow!
A beautiful boarding school. And she didn't want me to go because she, it was like the two of us were like best friends. She was there wanting to hang out with me all the time. And I was like desperate to go. I was like, this is amazing. So in the end, she was like, okay, fine, we'll send you to boarding school. So I went off to boarding school, had a lovely education. And then my mum couldn't afford to continue to send me there. So I was there for a few years. Loved it, had this art scholarship, walked around with a jumper that had a little easel, a little paint palette on my jumper. So it was almost like, I'm a prefect, I'm cool, I've got this, and I really believe it was like the root of my creativity. It was where I knew the one talent that I had was making things. Like I had this artistic talent that no one could take away from me. So even though I was rubbish at sports, I was rubbish at maths, all these things, I still had that. And then my mum had to drop me into, well, she didn't have to drop me into the school she dropped me into, but she basically had to take me out of the school I was at and drop me into an inner city state school in central Nottingham.
That's quite a contrast.
Yes, a massive contrast, called Gianogli City Technology College. And it was great, but it's incredibly rough, and it's probably not the best school in Nottingham. But she dropped me off there, and as soon as I walked through the doors, I was known as Posh Totty. And I used to get really upset, and I used to cry a lot because I was like, I'm being bullied, and like they would be like, oh, here she comes, Posh Totty, and I couldn't help it because I had this posh voice that I got, and so when I was trying to think of a name, I just thought, actually, maybe after all these years, I should try and use it for good, and kind of. It's a catchy name. It worked then. It works now. So.
No, I love it. That was my third question down, but I got distracted. That's why I have some notes. And no, it's a really cool name, but it's nice you kind of turn that on its head, haven't you? Really, you've turned that negativity you received to something really, really positive.
Yes, and I hope it's funny because obviously we went through Trump era, was still in Trump era, but there were moments where I was like, oh, I wish I hadn't called it that. But actually, the one thing about it is it's very memorable. It makes people smile. The amount of people that go and pose outside the front of the shops when they're like Posh Totty, kind of, you get all the hens posing outside the front. So it kind of it works in so many ways because it's catchy and memorable. And it would have just been called Arc Designs or something if I'd just gone for my name. So I'm actually much happier that I did go for it, but there were moments of nervousness.
Love it. Is there anything else you'd like to share before I ask all the places where people can find you online?
No, just that, I thank you so much. It's a real honor to come on here and a real privilege. And you've had some incredible guests on on this podcast. So I'll be listening to.
And you're incredible. I'm really, really grateful you said yes. I know we tried to get it arranged, and I think the book just took my brain over, and I was like, oh, I really want to get you on.
No, I think we were so crazy as well. So I think it's lovely to finally be here. But and I also have a podcast called Show Us Your Bits. Yeah.
I mean, it's a brilliant name, brilliant podcast.
It is. It's all about, actually, it really relates to what we do. So it's basically, I do it with my friend who is a talented author. And she's really into storytelling. Obviously, she's written like 25 books. And together we decided to kind of create something that was all about the stories behind people's jewelry and the keepsakes, because everybody has got keepsakes that have been passed down through the generations, and they don't have to be jewelry. It could be like a candlestick or a pen or just whatever those memorable things are. And we've just had some incredible guests that have come on to talk about their lives, but then they've also talked about their special keepsakes. And yeah, I love doing it. I mean, it's definitely, something that I do for fun, but it's just, we've had so many fantastic stories. So yeah, you should come on.
I would love to. I am here. Tell me where and when, and I will be there.
Fabulous.
Awesome. Remind us all the places we can find you online.
So you can find us on our website, which is www.poshtottydesigns.com. I don't know that you have to do the www anymore.
I don't know either.
Yeah, which is poshtottydesigns.com. And you can also find us on Instagram at Posh Totty Designs as well. And then we also have a store in Islington on Camden Passage, and we have a store in Brighton on Sydney Street. And you'll probably find us in lots of concessions in department stores as well.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much.